Hello YouTube! We're on the Real Programming channel. I'm its host, my name is Andrei. I greet you, welcome you. This is our 17th lesson. It's about HTML, PHP and MySqL. We'll talk about it. All starts with a table. Plan ahead. And for start, joke. So we did begin building a PHP and MySqL application. Should we write the PHP script and then create a table to hold the data, or should we make the table first and then the script? Frank, Jill, Joe. Joe, I don't see how it really matters. We're going to need the table and the script before the application will work. Frank, that's true, but I think we should write the script first so we can test out the PHP code before connecting it to the database. Jill, but the PHP scripts entirely dependent on the database. It'll be hard to test the script if we don't have a database for it to connect to. Frank, couldn't we create the script but just leave out the specific code that connects to the database? We could do everything but actually interact with the database. That might still be helpful, right? Joe, not necessarily. Remember, the script's only job is to take data entered into an HTML form and stick it in a database, or if it's sending an email to the mailing list, the script reads from the database and generates an email messages. For each user, either way, the database is critical to the script. Jill, true, but we didn't even think about the HTML form. Where does that fill into all this? I'm thinking we need to create a database before we can even think about writing the script. Frank, that's it. First we create the HTML form, then we figure out what data goes in the database, and when that's done, we tie it all together with the script. Joe, I'm not sure if that really makes sense. How can we create an HTML form when we aren't 100% sure what data we need to get from the user? Joe, right. Jill, the HTML form still adds back to us needing to have the data for the application figured out first. The data drives everything, so we should probably build the database and table first, then the HTML form, and then the script that reacts to the form submission. Frank, I'm sold, let's do it. Joe, I still think we probably need to come up with specific steps of how this application is going to come together. Write in your sheet of paper the specific steps you think are involved in your going from design to implementation with makemeelvis.com. Plan ahead. Really need to a plan of attack for putting together Elmer's applications. By breaking it down into steps, we can focus on one thing at a time and not get overwhelmed. First, create a database and table for the email list. This table will hold the first names, last names and email addresses of everyone and on Elmer's mailing list. Elvis Store 2. Create and add email web form and PHP script for adding a new customer to the list. Here is where we build a form and a script that will allow a customer to easily enter their first name, last name and email address, and then add them to the mail list. 3. Create a send email web form and PHP script for sending an email to the list. Finally, we'll build a web form that will allow Elmer to compose an email message, and more importantly, a script that will take that message and send it to everyone stored in his email list table. It all starts with table. Actually, it all starts with a database, which is basically a container for storing data. Remember in the last chapter how databases are divided internally into more containers called tables, like days and weeks in a calendar. A table is made up of columns and rows of data columns consist of one specific type of data, such as first name, last name, and email. Rows are collections or of columns where a single row consists of one of each column. An example of a row is 20 varlets 2WERR at starbuckscoffee.com. A database is a container for storing data in a very structured way. These data structures are both tables, a column, a row. Generally, all the tables in the database have some relationship to each other, even if that affiliation is sometimes loosey. It's common for web applications to consist of multiple tables that are connected to one another through their data, but all the tables are still made up of columns and rows. Tables store data in a grid-like pattern of columns and rows. A table. Another table. These are the rows. There are the columns. Database which is stored by a MySqL database server. Think of a database like a container that holds information. Another table. Some other table. And there are no dumb questions. Whereas database data actually stored. Can I see the files? Database data is typically stored in the files on a hard disk. And although you could certainly look at them, they wouldn't tell you much. Database files are binary files that can just be opened and looked at. That's why we have SQL to allow us to peer into database and interact with the data stored within it. Make contact with the MySqL server. Elmer's applications designed needs a database and a table. Most of the day-to-day work of dealing with database involves interacting with tables, but you can just jump in and start creating tables without creating database to hold them first. To create database command is the SQL command used to create database. Once that's done, you can move on to creating a table with the create table command. But before you can use either of those commands, you have to connect to your MySqL database server. You did just this back in the last chapter, and it required a few pieces of important information. The name is Elmer, that's Elmer. A MySqL tool such as the MySqL terminal lets you connect to a MySqL database server with a valid server locations, username and password. As well as letting a PHP script make a connection to a database and perform database actions. The database server locations, username and the password are the key to using the MySqL terminal or a PHP MyAdmin, and these tools are pretty helpful for getting a database applications off the ground with initial database and table creation. Since creating a database and table for Elmer's application only has to happen once, it makes sense to use an SQL query to create them manually. So fire up your MySqL tool of choice and get ready to knock out the first step of Elmer's application, creating a database and table for the email list. Okay, you are here. First, create a database and table for the mail list. 2. Create and add mail web form and PHP script for adding new customers to the list. 3. Create a send emails web form and a PHP script for sending an email to the list. And remember, please, you will find all the costs and the materials of this lesson under this video. Create a database for Elmer's emails. To create a new table and database for emails, Elmer's emails list, first we need to create Elvis database which will hold email list table. Will they use SQL command to create both? The SQL command used to create a database is create database, which you used briefly in the previous chapter. Let's look a bit closer at how it works. Create database and the SQL command used to create a new database. The name of the new database to be created, you need to specify the name of the new database after the command create database. Here is the SQL statement to create our database. When you execute the statements on the MySQL database server, the database will be created. And when you run the SQL command in the terminal, you always add a semicolon to the end, but not when you issue SQL queries to the PHP MySqL underscore query with two brackets function. The database is created, but it can't hold any data without a table. And creating the ls underscore store database with the create database command results is shiny new database, but not able to actually store data yet. And create a table inside the database. We'll talk about this in the next lesson. And this is our 17th lesson about PHP MySQL HTML is over. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Please like with friends, share with friends, comment, meditate, do exercise, drink more water for the brain, do exercise, don't forget, every evening. Thank you. Bye.